And hello again, and here we are back in my garage about to fit the new bearings to these R6 wheels that I've just recently had powder coated. So to do that, there are several different ways of doing it. I could just take a bearing and a screw-sized socket and use that to sort of hammer it in. But that's not always ideal because you do risk damaging a bearing when you're doing that. So instead I've got this very simple little tool here. Just a bit of threaded bar with a suitable alloy kind of washer at one end and at the other end. And all I've got to do now is unscrew one end. Let me just do this very quickly. I should have done this off camera, but never mind. And what I've got to do is just remove one side and then push it through from the other side. Just bear with me. And so that side will just be hard up against the side of the wheel, and then I get my bearing, which is still wrapped up. I really should have put these in the freezer for a few hours just to chill them down a bit, but not time for that, so we'll bang it on just as is. So we'll pop him in there like that, and then we get our giant washer followed by another washer. In fact, this one's quite special, I'll come back to that one in a minute. And then we can put on a nut. Obviously this threaded bar is somewhat a bit long, but never mind. Better have it too long than too short. And now all I've got to do is tighten up the nuts, and it should hopefully just gently press the bearing into the wheel, which it is doing. That actually wasn't too bad, was it? But obviously it can't go in all the way because this thing's too big. But with that done, I can now unscrew it to the other side, and with the bearing pretty much all the way in to the wheel, I can now confidently just hit it with a suitable sized sprocket and just seat it into the wheel. So that's not too bad, is it? And so now with the bearing almost all the way in, I can now confidently take my socket here and just tap it in until it's seated. Like that. So that's fine. So now we turn it over and repeat the process. But first it's important to remember to fit this, the wheel space that goes inside. It's very important you get that in. Don't ask me how I know, because I once fitted some brand new bearings to a wheel and forgot to fit the spacer, which is not something I want to do today. So anyway, with that in, I can now take my little tool and pass it through here. Carefully. Like so. Take my little, it's just a bearing, followed by my fixture, followed by a washer, followed by a nut, and now we can repeat the process and hopefully get the bearings in without any damage to either the bearing or the fresh powder coat that's on this wheel. Okay, so that's the front wheel done. Now I've got to do the back wheel. And so moving on to the rear wheel, one side uses a roller bearing, but the other side uses a needle roller bearing, which is a bit more delicate. So I've got a special tool to help me fit this into the wheel, which I'll come to in a minute. But first, let's get this roller bearing into the wheel. And so on the other side of the rear wheel, I've got to press in this rather delicate needle roller bearing, and to do that, I've got this. We machine this up on a lathe, and this is a little fitment. It fits just inside the bearing like this, and so I can use my threaded bar and hopefully gently press it into place without risking any damage to the bearing. Right, so here goes. Yeah, it's working well, isn't it? Look at that, going straight in. That's good, I like that. No risk of damaging the bearing as I'm doing this, hopefully. Oops. Right, that's about it. That's seated. That's great news. So let's get this off here. And so with the needle roller bearing fitted, my last job is to fit the dust seals. And these dust seals just press into place quite easily, just use your thumb. And so with that done, my next job is to find somewhere to buy a decent set of tyres for the wheels.